Director Christopher Nolan has taken on a mammoth task in adapting Homer's The Odyssey, and after the release of the first trailer, it's clear he is going all out to try and capture the epic, both in his way and in a modern way too. Homer's The Odyssey stands at the foundation of Western narrative tradition, and its influence on modern storytelling is both deep and remarkably persistent. And if Nolan pulls off his take, I'm sure that he'll want his film to be one that both inspires and influences the next generation of movie makers and film watchers. So in this video, I'm going to be discussing the incredible influence The Odyssey had on modern storytelling and the potential for Nolan to have a similar effect with his filmmaking. Before I get into it though, if you want to see more updates and videos on the work of Christopher Nolan and his upcoming epic, then don't forget to support this upload by giving it a like rating and subscribing to the channel. But without further ado, let's dive into the influence of The Odyssey. So composed nearly 3 millennia ago, The Odyssey established the narrative patterns, character archetypes, and thematic concerns that continue to shape novels, films, TV series, and even video games. At its core, The Odyssey is a story about return, identity, and endurance, but its lasting power lies in how it tells that story. And that is through an episodic structure, psychological depth, moral ambiguity, and a careful balance between the personal and the cosmic. Modern storytelling repeatedly returns to these techniques, often unconsciously, because it speaks to the universal human experience in ways that remain emotionally and structurally effective. One of the most enduring contributions of The Odyssey to modern storytelling is its model of the journey narrative. Odysseus' long voyage home from Troy is not a simple linear adventure, but a sequence of trials that test his intelligence, loyalty, and moral limits. This very structure has become a template for countless modern stories, from fantasy epics to even science fiction sagas. It's the idea that a protagonist grows through a series of challenges, each revealing a different aspect of their character, and is central to contemporary narrative design. Modern stories frequently mirror Odysseus' path by placing their heroes in unfamiliar worlds, forcing them to adapt, to make mistakes, and to learn through hardship. And importantly, the journey is not merely physical, as it is also psychological and ethical. Odysseus' struggles with temptation, pride, and despair anticipate the internal conflicts that define modern protagonists, making the journey as much about self-understanding as it is about reaching a destination. Another major influence of The Odyssey lies in its complex portrayal of character, particularly in its main hero. In saying the word hero, Odysseus is not an idealized figure of flawless virtue. He is clever but deceptive, brave yet often reckless, and loyal yet capable of infidelity. This moral complexity was groundbreaking in its time, but it also remains essential to modern storytelling. Contemporary audiences are drawn to protagonists who feel human rather than heroic in a simplistic sense, and Odysseus can be seen as an early example of the anti-hero. His intelligence frequently saves him, but his arrogance also prolongs his suffering, as seen when he reveals his name to Polyphemus and invites Poseidon's wrath. Modern narratives often rely on this same dynamic, where a character's greatest strength is inseparable from their greatest flaw, creating stories that feel psychologically authentic and morally nuanced. Moving on, the epic also profoundly influenced the narrative structure through its use of non-linear storytelling. The Odyssey famously begins in the middle of the action, with Odysseus already missing for years and unfolding through flashbacks and multiple perspectives. This technique allows the audience to piece together the hero's journey gradually, creating suspense and emotional depth. Modern storytelling frequently employs similar strategies, using fragmented timelines, shifting viewpoints, and delayed exposition to engage audiences more actively. And you can take Christopher Nolan as a prime example of this. By trusting the audience to assemble the narrative puzzle, The Odyssey established a storytelling approach that prioritizes immersion and intellectual participation, a hallmark of many contemporary novels and films throughout time. Equally important though is the epic's blending of the ordinary with the extraordinary. The mythic elements with everyday emotions has become a defining feature of modern genres like fantasy and speculative fiction. Even stories set in realistic or futuristic situations often adopt this Odyssean balance, using heightened or symbolic elements to explore real psychological and social struggles. The gods in the Odyssey can further be read as external representations of fate, chance, or internal impulses, something that has extended to modern works where stories personify abstract forces through characters, systems, or even metaphors. And finally, it's known that the Odyssey shaped modern storytelling through its emphasis on homecoming and recognition. The climax of the epic poem is not simply Odysseus' return to Ithaca, but his gradual revelation of identity and the restoration of order. The focus on recognition, reconciliation, and the re-establishment of meaning resonates strongly with modern narratives that prioritize emotional resolution over mere victory. Many great contemporary stories end not with conquest, but with understanding, forgiveness, or even self-acceptance, echoing Odysseus' final trials as he reclaims his place back home. So this idea of a story having a more meaningful conclusion can be traced directly back to Homer's epic. As a whole, the Odyssey continues to influence modern storytelling because it captures fundamental truths about the human experience while offering narrative techniques that remain adaptable and powerful today. Its journey structure, complex characters, non-linear narrative, mythic realism, and emotionally resonant resolution form a blueprint that storytellers still rely on. Though the settings and mediums have changed, the underlying patterns established by Homer still persist, demonstrating that the epic is not merely a historical artifact, but a living foundation for how stories are told and understood in the modern world. With all this said, judging from the first trailer, Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey appears poised to influence the future of modern epic filmmaking by redefining what an epic looks and feels like in the 21st century. Rather than presenting the story as a traditional mythological spectacle, the trailer suggests an epic grounded in scale, atmosphere, and psychological intensity. Its emphasis on vast physical environments, tactile realism, and restrained exposition signals a move away from an effects-driven fantasy towards a more immersive and experiential form of epic cinema. While The Odyssey is filled with fantastical elements in monsters, gods, and supernatural interventions, Nolan has historically favoured practical effects, grounded visuals, and a sense of physical authenticity. His adaptation seems to be reinterpreting these mythical elements in ways that feel tangible and psychologically credible, presenting them as weighty symbolic manifestations of human fears and desires. Take the Cyclops Polyphemus as a good example, an animatronic that is reportedly being brought to life by Bill Irwin. It's rumoured that he's using practical animatronics and miniatures for a lot of the other mythic elements too, so it seems as if the director has gone to a lot of effort and care to translate everything in a believable way. Not many filmmakers today would go down this route, even with a massive budget, and if Nolan does pull it off, it's going to be a potential game changer. Alongside all of this potential visual wizardry though, Nolan seems to be positioning The Odyssey as a timeless human story rendered with modern cinematic seriousness. The trailer's structure itself hints at the director's continuing influence on narrative form within epic filmmaking. Instead of laying out a clear plot or chronological journey, the preview appears fragmented and impressionistic, offering flashes of struggle, isolation, and confrontation. It also suggests that he's going to be echoing Homer's work by focusing on different narrative paths through Odysseus' struggle home, Telemachus' hunt to find him and his growth into a man, and Penelope's struggles in dealing with the suitors in Ithaca. This mirrors Nolan's long-standing interest in fractured storytelling and aligns closely with the Odyssey's own episodic and memory-driven structure. Nolan seems to be reinforcing the idea that audiences are capable of and even eager for complex narrative engagement. The trailer further suggests that there's going to be a redefining of the epic hero at the centre of the Odyssey for modern cinema. As mentioned before, Odysseus is not introduced as a triumphant conqueror, but as a figure marked by fatigue, distance, and inner strain. The emphasis appears to be less on glory and more on survival, persistence, and identity under all the pressure he faces. This portrayal aligns with Nolan's ongoing fascination with protagonists who are psychologically burdened by their journeys, and it reframes heroism as endurance. Such a depiction could influence the large-scale films of today to take a break from the idealized hero figures and towards more introspective, morally complex characters, allowing ancient or legendary stories to resonate with contemporary concerns about trauma, memory, and responsibility. Visually, the footage we've seen also suggests that Nolan will continue to shape epic filmmaking through his commitment to physical scale and realism. The environments feel immense and unforgiving, emphasizing nature, distance, and vulnerability rather than fantastical excess. Even when hinting at plenty of mythic elements, it still appears to ground them in a sense of high texture and atmosphere, favouring that real approach that Nolan is known for. This aesthetic choice reinforms the idea that all can come from realism and restraint as much as it can from digital presentation. I think the general audience strives for more grandeur that is believable, and I think it's commendable that a filmmaker like Nolan stays true to how he makes movies and doesn't try to abandon that when making a film about a story with much more mythological elements involved. Furthermore, the apparent emphasis on sensory storytelling aligns with Nolan's broader cinematic philosophy in conveying a greater sense of mythic weight. By treating the sound design and musical structure as narrative elements, The Odyssey may be striving for a new standard for how epics communicate scale, isolation, and psychological depth all at once. Nolan and his composer, in this case Ludwig Göransson, have always done a great job with this, and I think it's a very important aspect when it comes to the communication of the story to the audience. I'm not saying that The Odyssey isn't going to have dialogue and well-built characters within it, I'm just saying that from a technical perspective, I think Nolan understands how to translate a story well using all the narrative elements in front of him. For me, Christopher Nolan's adaptation of The Odyssey has the potential to influence the next generation of filmmaking, not merely by retelling an ancient story, but by demonstrating how classical narratives can be reimagined with modern cinematic language while retaining their philosophical depth. Nolan's body of work has consistently shown a fascination with time, memory, identity, and moral consequence, concerns that align naturally with Homer's epic. By bringing The Odyssey into his distinctive cinematic framework, I think Nolan could reinforce the idea that ancient myths are not relics to be preserved at a distance, but living narratives capable of speaking directly to contemporary audiences. This approach may inspire future filmmakers to look backwards in order to move forward, treating foundational texts as creative catalysts rather than restrictive templates. His version of The Odyssey could encourage filmmakers to pursue projects that bridge the ancient and the modern, the popular and the philosophical, and the spectacular and the intimate. But that was my video discussing the influence of Homer's The Odyssey and how Christopher Nolan might follow suit with his adaptation. Are you excited for Christopher Nolan's take on The Odyssey, and what moments are you most looking forward to seeing on the big screen? Let me know down below in the comments section. For much more videos and news on Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey film, then subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like rating and follow me on social media via the links in the description. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I've been Cortex, and as always, make some noise.